Shabbat Shalom, y'all. I wanted to do a quick study. Well, I wouldn't say quick, it's pretty in depth. I've got quite a few scriptures written down here to go over tonight. So there's a lot of reading to do. But I'm going to do a study on what it means to convert people. Is it our duty to convert people, to convince people of the faith? Or are we supposed to live by example and live a life that's pleasing to Elohim? And in turn, our brothers and sisters will see that and be drawn to the walk of faith through their own accord. So, got quite a few scriptures I want to go over, so let's get started. 1 Corinthians 3, verses 3 through 9. For you are still fleshly, for since there is envy and strife and division among you, are you not fleshly and walking according to man? For when one says, I am of Saul, and another, I am of Apollos, are you not fleshly? What then is Apollos, and what is Saul, but servants through whom you believe, as the master assigned to each? I planted, Apollos watered, but Elohim was giving growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything at all, but Elohim who gives the increase. And he who plants and he who waters are one, and each one shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. For we are fellow workers of Elohim. You are the field of Elohim, the building of Elohim. This is pretty clear there that it's not any particular person. No person is to be of your school of thought or another school of thought. We are all to be working as emissaries of Messiah, according to this verse. And one man may plant a seed, another brother may water it, but Abba is giving that increase. It comes from Elohim. So my next verse, we're going to jump over to the book of Matthew. Pretty common one quoted among the Torah community, but I'm going to be quoting it for a different reason tonight. We're going to start Matthew 5, verse 17. Do not think that I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. The law and the prophets. Oh, I'm sorry, I started reading a footnote. I didn't come to destroy, but to complete. For truly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle shall by no means pass from the Torah till all be done. Whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men so shall be called least in the reign of the heavens. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the reigns of the heavens. For I say to you that unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you shall by no means enter into the reigns of the heavens. Okay, so pretty clear here. Law and prophets are still valid. Totally agree with that statement. Also, it is the duty of us to do and teach. And what is the best way to teach but by example? Lead by example. If you're doing these things, if you're keeping these laws, other folks will see you do it and they'll be attracted to it if you're doing it in the heart of righteousness with compassion. So, moving on quickly here, we are going to look at Titus chapter 2. We're going to look at a lot of Titus tonight. There's several verses in Titus. I've got 2 in Titus that are real important here. Titus 2, 7 and 8. Show yourself to them an example of good works in all matters, in teaching, show uncorruptness, seriousness, soundness of speech beyond reproach, in order that the opponent is put to shame, having no evil word to say about you. Pretty clear cut and straightforward there. Show them, or show your works to them, an example, show yourself to them an example of good works in all matters, in teaching, showing uncorruptness and seriousness. So show people that you are uncorrupt and serious in your keeping of the Torah. That doesn't mean that you say one thing and do something else. It's consistency. You want to be consistent continually in your walk because you want to lead by example. 1 Corinthians 9. And we'll look at verses 14 through 18. So also the master instituted that those announcing the good news should live from the good news. But I have used none of these, nor have I written this, that it should be done so to me, for it would be better for me to die than anyone should make my boasting empty. For if I bring the good news, it is not boasting for me, for necessity is laid on me, that it is woe to me if I do not bring the good news. For I do this voluntarily. I have a reward, but if not voluntarily, I am entrusted with a management. What then is my reward? That in bringing the good news, I should offer the good news of Messiah without cost, so as not to abuse my authority in the good news. Let's see. Actually, okay, yeah. So that's pretty much it on 1 Corinthians 9. So it's very important that our boasting be in that of what we're doing, not in and of ourselves. When we don't teach people this, we don't do these things to lift ourselves up or to exalt ourselves or make ourselves ahead over another person. We do and teach these things out of a heart of compassion, and it's because it's necessity that has been placed on our being, as Paul's saying here. That is necessity. So we become emissaries of the covenant of Messiah, of the good news, because it is a necessity for us to share that, what has brought us to the faith and brought us to where we're at, to share that with our brothers and our sisters. So let's look at 1 Peter. I'm going to go to 1 Peter 5. Verses 2 and 3. Shepherd the flock of Elohim which is among you, serving as overseers, not by compulsion, but voluntarily, not out of greed for filthy gain, but eagerly, neither being masters over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. There we go. There's that example thing again. We're not doing this to exalt ourselves as a head over someone else. We're not doing this to boast over someone else. We're doing this to be examples with what has been entrusted to us. And that may be one person, that may be 10, that may be 100. If one person's placed in your life and you're to be an example to them, then you need to be trustworthy in that. And it says, neither is being masters over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. So that means you got to live out of this heart right here. Because remember, Yeshua said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's the same with our works. Out of the abundance of the heart, it's what these babies right here do, what our hands do, where they go, where they take us, how we interact with people, how we treat people, the love we show people. Okay, Hebrews 13. And this is just going to be one verse. We're going to read verse 7. Remember those leading you who spoke the word of Elohim to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their belief. So, there again, when you become that emissary to a brother or sister, then if they recognize something good in you, then they're going to imitate those things that they see in you. It goes for the same goes for bad too, because bad company corrupts good morals. Definitely very true. So, okay, next verse we're going to look at is 1 Corinthians 11:1. So we're going to look at chapter 11, verse 1. Become imitators of me, as I also am of Messiah. Pretty simple one there. Because when you imitate Messiah and you're that example, then people will become imitators of what you do. And that's good or bad. So the next verse I want to look at is going to be Philippians 4. And that's going to be 8 and 9. Verses 8 and 9. For the rest, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is righteous, whatever is clean, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good report, if there is any uprightness, and if there is any praise, think on these. And what you have learned and received and heard and saw in me, practice these, and the Elohim of peace shall be with you. Once again, if we're leading by example, then the people that see that example are going to learn from that example, and they're going to practice and imitate those same actions. So that example is important. And what you have learned and received and heard and saw in me, practice these, and the Elohim of peace shall be with you. So if you see good in me, and you see righteousness in me, and it's coming from above, if you imitate those things, then it's going to, the peace from Elohim, and that Elohim is going to be a part of your life. He's going to be in your life. Okay, so we're going to go back to Titus again. Titus 1 this time. And we're going to look at verses 7 and 8 in Titus 1. For an overseer has to be unreprovable as a managing one of Elohim, not self-pleasing, not wroth, not given to wine, no brawler, nor greedy for filthy gain, but kind to strangers, a lover of what is good, sensible, righteous, set apart, and self-controlled. And actually, I want to start in verse 7. I'm sorry. So we read 7, 8, and then we're going to read 9. Clinging to the trustworthy word, according to the teachings, in order to be able both to encourage by sound teaching and to reprove those who oppose it. Very important. Once again, you're living that example. That's how you convert others, is by that example. All right, so this is going to be the long reading. This is going to be James chapter 3. We are going to read the whole chapter. For not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, knowing that we shall receive greater judgment. For we all stumble in many matters. If anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle the entire body. Look, We put bits in the mouths of horses for them to obey us, and we turn their body. Look at ships too. Although they are so big and are driven by strong winds, they are turned by a very small rudder wherever the pilot intends. So too the tongue is a little member, yet boasts greatly. See, a little fire kindles a great forest, and the tongue is a fire, and the word of unrighteousness. Among our members the tongue is set, the one defiling the entire body, and the setting on fire the will of life, and it is set on fire by Gehenna. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and creature of the sea, is tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no man is able to tame the tongue. It is unruly, evil, filled with deadly poison. With it we bless our Elohim and Father, and with it we curse men, who have been made in the likeness of Elohim. Out of the same mouth proceeds blessing and cursing. My brothers, it should not be so. Does the fountain send forth sweet and bitter from the same opening? My brothers, is a fig tree able to bear olives, or a grapevine figs? So neither is a fountain able to make salt and sweet water. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by his good behavior his works in meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast against and lie against the truth. This is not the wisdom coming down from above, but it is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and self-seeking are, there is confusion and every foul deed. But the wisdom from above is first clean, then peaceable, gentle, ready to obey, filled with compassion and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of great righteousness, sown in peace by those who make peace. James 3, pretty self-explanatory. Very good verse. Okay, so let's move on to 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Okay. Do your uttermost to present yourselves approved to Elohim, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. So this is very important. We need to present ourselves approved by Elohim, a worker who does not need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. That means rightly interacting with people, treating people with compassion and kindness, and being able to meet them where they're at and offer insight and wisdom without judgment and browbeating. Okay, so let's skip on over to 1 Peter 2:21. Okay, verse 21. For to this you were called, because Messiah also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow his steps. Okay, there we go. He left us an example, and we're to follow his steps. If we're going to do as he did, we have to walk as he walked. Pretty self-explanatory. 1 Corinthians 4, 1 and 2. Let me get over here. 4, 1 and 2. Let a man regard us as servants of Messiah and trustees of the secrets of Elohim. For the rest, it is sought in trustees that those should be found trustworthy. There you go. We are servants of Messiah. We are trustees of the secrets of Elohim. and we should share them through our life and the way that we interact with people. Isaiah. We're going to look at the book of Isaiah. We're going to do chapter 61, verse 1. Okay. Isaiah 61, verse 1. The Spirit of the Master Yahweh is upon me, because Yahweh has anointed me to bring good news to the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim release to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound. So then again, if you're called to bring that good news, then it's something that you should be, if you're anointed in that you should serve in that. That should be, like we read before, it's a priority in Corinthians. It should be something that we make, a center focal point in how we walk and talk and interact. All right, so let's go back to James 2. James 2, and we're going to look at verses 12 through 17. So speak and so do as those who are to be judged by a Torah of freedom. For the judgment is without compassion to the one who has shown no compassion, and compassion boasts over judgment. My brothers, what use is it for anyone to say he has belief but does not have works? This belief is unable to save him. And if a brother or a sister is naked and in need of daily food, but one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and be filled, but you do not give them the bodily needs, what use is it? So also belief, if it does not have works, it is in itself dead. Okay, so just like if someone seeks you out for the daily necessities of life, if they're hurting, if they're in need, if they need food, if they need sustenance, and you don't give that and you tell them to go be filled, what use is it? And it's just like our belief, that faith in that good news. If it's not producing works in our life, if it's not producing examples to our brothers, then what good is it? If we're not feeding our brothers spiritually through our belief, which should have works accompanied to it, because belief is an action, not just a thought process. It's not just something you do up here, but it's what you do with your hands too. So very important to remember that about belief. All right, next chapter and verse is going to be Romans. Hold on just a second. Romans always right after Acts. Romans 2:21. You may hear my dog in the background. He's snoring. All right, Romans 2:21 through 24. You then, who teach another, do you not teach yourself? You who proclaim that a man should not steal, do you steal? You who say, do not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who abominate idols, do you rob temples? You who make your boast in the Torah, through the transgression of the Torah, do you disrespect Elohim? For the name of Elohim is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you, as it has been written. So again, Paul's question on, if you're going to boast in the Torah, if you're going to boast in these things, if you're going to tell other people, don't do this, you need to be living that example. You need to be the living example of that very thing that you are trying to convince your brother that they need to be doing. And that's the best thing, because your words can be said a million times over, but when your actions coupled with that, that speaks volumes to people. So Galatians 6. We're going to look at 2 verses in 6. We're going to look at verse 1 and verse 9. Verse 1. Brothers, if a man is overtaken in some trespass, you, the spiritual ones, set such a one straight in a spirit of meekness, looking at yourselves, lest you be tried too. You know what? I'm just going to go on and read through some more of this. Bear one another's burdens, and so complete the Torah of Messiah. For if anyone thinks himself to be somebody when he is not, he deceives himself. But let each one examine his own work, and then he shall have boasting in himself alone and not in another. For each one shall bear his own burden. And let him who is instructed in the word share in all that is good with him who is instructing. Do not be led astray. Elohim is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he shall also reap. Because he who sows to his own flesh shall reap corruption from the flesh, but he who sows to the Spirit shall reap everlasting life from the Spirit. And let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due season we shall reap, if we do not grow weary. So then, as we have occasion, let us do good to all, especially those who are of the household of belief. So, very important. That was Galatians 1 through verse 10. I just felt led to read that whole thing. Make a note of that. Very important that, when someone is falling away, that we set them straight with the spirit of meekness, not browbeating, not hateful, hard words that hurt other people. I mean, sometimes you're going to hurt feelings either way. That's not always avoidable, but it should be your goal to approach someone with a word that's going to benefit them and profit them. Okay, Philippians 2:3. Do none at all through selfishness or self-conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. So, it's going back to placing others above yourself. If you have compassion, if you have love for others, then you will be a brother to them and place that above yourself. Very important stuff here. We're going to look at Romans 14. We're almost done here. 2 verses left. We're going to look at Romans 14, 11 through 13. Okay. For it has been written, as I live, says Yahweh, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to Elohim. Each one of us, therefore, shall be given account of himself to Elohim. Therefore, let us not judge one another any longer, but rather judge this, not to put an obstacle or a stumbling block in our brother's way. So, in a sense, we are a brother's keeper, but not in the sense of we should be judging them, but in the sense of we should not be doing things to cause them to fall. We should not be doing things to cause them to stumble, to fall short, to not walk in integrity with Elohim. And that is where we are a brother's keeper, is we're not to be the stumbling block. You can't help what your brother decides to do on his own free will, but you can avoid being something that draws your brother away. All right, last verse for tonight. We're going to look at Romans 9, 11 and 12. Yet, before they were born or had done any good or evil, in order that the purpose of Elohim according to choice might stand, not of works, but of him who calls. It was said to her, the greater shall serve the lesser. So, um, it's Abba calls. Abba is the one that calls people out. Abba is the one that wakes people up. Just like I read earlier about Apollo or Apollos, like one plants, another one waters, but the increase is from Elohim. And that's just like the calling out. Elohim will draw those whom he decides to draw. And we have no control over that. All we can do is live by that example every day. Walk in integrity, walk in righteousness, walk in love for your neighbor. And you will complete that part of the Torah. You'll complete that part of the law. Because if you want to be your brother's keeper, then you have to be your brother's example. It's not that you go around and decide, well, this person's in sin, and I think this about the way that they walk, and I'm just going to pummel them over the head with what I know about the Torah. Instead, live a life of example, live a life of compassion, of meekness, of gentleness to one another, and you will draw more people out. You will wake more people up that way than with the attitude of, I know, and I'm going to make you know too. Thank you for your time. Shabbat Shalom. Many blessings.